All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody to the first advocacy meeting of 2024. My name is Dina Justice, and I'm the COO of the ARC of Florida. And today we have Ann Siegel, who is the Legal Director for Disability Rights Florida. And she's going to give us an overview of what exactly disability rights is and the services they offer. And I am going to share my screen. I'm going to make Ann the host, and so she can share her screen. And I would like to just mention to everyone to put your questions in the chat if you have questions regarding the presentation, and we will get to them as we can. And at the end, if we have time for Q&A, we will open it up at that point. Okay, so Ann, I will let you take it away. Let me see here. Okay.
Okay, it's not sharing.
No, I don't see anything. It says you're the host.
Okay, let me try that again, because
There we go.
all righty. All right, is that good? Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. I don't know, it looks a little different on my end, but we're good to go. So good afternoon. Sorry about the little rocky start here. I'm Ann Siegel, and you're here for an overview of Disability Rights Florida on who we are and what we do. As I said, I am Ann Siegel. Oops, sorry. That did not work as the way I expected it to. Let me go back and try again. Did that advance the slide?
Yes, it did.
Perfect. All right. I am the legal director at Disability Rights Florida. I've been with Disability Rights Florida. I am very proud to announce for 15 years this month. I came from a background of always doing special ed. I worked for Legal Aid and the Advocacy Center for Persons with Disabilities, which is Disability Rights Florida now. A little history about how the Protection and Advocacy Agency came about. It all started with with Willowbrook, which was an institution in New York. And I'm really going to date myself now, but there was an individual reporter called Geraldo Rivera, and he had gotten some really bad reports about this facility, went out and did an investigation. And after they saw how badly the folks were being treated there and experimented on, it came to fruition that we needed a protection and advocacy system to protect individuals with disabilities. So in 1977, Governor Askew established the Governor's Commission on Advocacy, and that worked to protect and advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. And this commission later became known as the Advocacy Center for Persons with Disabilities. And then in 2010, our organization name changed and we became Disability Rights Florida, but we are the state's protection and advocacy agency. Our mission is to advocate, educate, investigate, and litigate to protect and advance the rights, dignity, equal opportunity, self-determination, and choices for all people with disabilities. We are funded under 9 federal grants. We have a little inside joke here about the funding. All of our grants begin with protection and advocacy, except for one grant, and that is our client assistance program. Our client assistance program is the funding source that allows us to help folks navigate the VR process. So these services include assistance in pursuing administrative, legal, and other appropriate remedies to ensure the protection of persons receiving or seeking services under the Rehabilitation Act. And this grant is administered under Rehabilitation Services Administration. also known as RSA. I will tell you one thing about doing the work here, we have a lot of acronyms. So our next grant is the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Developmental Disabilities, known as our PAD grant. And that affords us the opportunity to advocate on behalf of folks who have developmental disabilities that impact 3 or more major life activities. Our next grant is the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness, also known as PAMI. And that grant was established in 1986. And it is there for us to protect and advocate for the rights of individuals with mental illness and to investigate abuse and neglect in facilities that care for and treat individuals with mental illness. Our PAIR grant, which is the Protection and Advocacy for Individual Rights, is a grant that helps us protect and advocate for legal and human rights of persons not covered and under our previous grants. I've discussed PAMI and PAD. So our PAIR grant allows us to advocate for folks who have maybe visual or hearing impairments or those with physical disabilities. One thing about our PAD grant is the onset of the disability has to be before the age of 22, but with PAIR, there is no age requirement. Then we have our Protection and Advocacy for Individuals in Need of Assistive Technology, known as our PAT grant, and that is exactly as it sounds. This allows us to advocate for folks who may need assistive technology, devices, through legal representation and self-advocacy. We assist folks in that arena. Our next grant, again, Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. And that grant was created by the Ticket to Work and Work Incentives Improvement Act of 1999. And it was established to assist Social Security beneficiaries with disabilities in obtaining information and advice and receiving vocational rehabilitation and employment services. So the focus on this grant is to assist us in advocating for folks to have meaningful, gainful employment. So whether you are seeking employment and there is a barrier to that, or you have current employment, but there is a barrier to maintaining that employment. Like, for example, if you need a reasonable accommodation in the workplace, as long as you are a Social Security recipient, we are able to advocate for you under our PABS grant. Our next one is the Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Traumatic Brain Injuries, known as PAT-B. And that is exactly, again, as it's named, it helps us provide advocacy services, information and referral, self-advocacy training to individuals who face a loss of legal rights as a result of a traumatic brain injury, or a TBI. And we work to increase and improve systems of support for individuals who have a traumatic brain injury. Protection Advocacy for Voter Access, PAVA, that is came about when Congress created in 2002 the Help America Vote Act, which is also known as HAVA. And so the PNA seek to secure election access for a wide range of individuals with disabilities, including but not limited to individuals with mental, sensory, and physical disabilities, pursuant to Congress, a broad mandate to ensure the full participation in the electoral process for individuals with disabilities, including registering to vote, casting a vote, and accessing polling places. During voting time, we go out to the different polling sites, and we do site reviews to ensure that the sites are accessible for folks to access. We've had sites in the past that have had steps, which have without a ramp, which do not allow folks who have mobility impairments access. So under the PAVA grant, we are able to do some site reviews and then provide our feedback to the election supervisors in order for them to find places that are more accessible for folks. Our next grant is our Protection and Advocacy for beneficiaries who have representative payees. And that was created in 2018 as part of the Strengthening Protections for Social Security Beneficiaries. And that allows the P&A system to conduct on-site reviews of payees, as well as submit annual reports to the Social Security Administration. And that also allows beneficiaries to designate a representative payee in advance, and it takes steps to reduce the administrative burden for representative payees who are a beneficiary's parent living in the same household or spouse, rather than a third-party payee. So that kind of is an introduction to all of the 9 federal grants that we received. And now I was going to go into the different issue teams that we have in our agency and kind of our quickie overview of what services each of those teams provide. And I am starting off with first, and first is our intake team. So if you reach out to Disability Rights Florida looking for assistance, you will speak with one of our frontline intake and referral services team members. They are obviously the first person you will probably come into contact with, and they are available through the hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We don't have any after hour services, but we do have online for folks who may need to contact us after hours. And our folks, our advocacy specialists in that team will take down the necessary information and be able to gather all of the documents that we need in order to review to see if this is a service that Disability Rights Florida can provide to you all. And they also are amazing at providing great resources for information and referral. So after you go through our intake process and you provide all of that information, then the director of that team gathers it all up and sends it on to the directors of our issue teams. Now, sometimes folks have been confused on what kind of services we provide. All of the services that Disability Rights Florida provides are determined by our goals and priorities. And our goals and priorities are developed from public input we receive through surveys and other outreach and to our constituents. So we provide a copy of our proposed goals, priorities, and objectives for public comment. And after a period of time of public comment, we take all of the information we've gotten from these surveys, gather it up, and then develop a draft of what our priorities and objectives should be for folks. And then our board of directors review that, and they will then approve or ask us to, why we've chosen certain things. All of our priorities and objectives are really developed from input through our process here. And the services that we provide to folks are free and confidential. So there is no charge to our constituents and consumers. Our next team is the public policy team, and that's kind of just what the name sounds. Our public policy team is primarily tasked with facilitating the organization's legislative and governmental affairs activities within the enumerated goals, priorities, and objectives. So this team annually assists in revisions of the organization's public input survey and coordinates with our board's public affairs committee to propose a revision to our goals, priorities, and objectives. And this team also facilitates the organization's voting access activities and related access to vote statewide stakeholder coalition. And finally, the team annually coordinates our grant reporting for the grants of PAD, PAVA, PAT-B, PAT, and PAIR. The next team that I'd like to talk about briefly is our representative payee team. And since August 2018, Disability Rights Florida has received funding to conduct reviews on behalf of the Social Security Administration. This program provides oversight to rep payees and their services to beneficiaries, as well as it gives them support to better understand their roles and responsibilities. This program helps both beneficiaries and rep payees. Beneficiaries are recipients of Social Security or supplemental security income benefits. Rep payees are individuals or organizations who manage Social Security benefits on behalf of the beneficiary. And the Social Security Administration assesses a beneficiary's need for a rep payee on a case-by-case basis. Not everyone requires a rep payee to be appointed. And Social Security Administration automatically assigns a rep payee to most children, child beneficiaries, and to individuals who are found to be legally incompetent by a court of law. They
Hey,
schedule.
Ann, real
Yes.
quick, if I may, since you're now the host, can you let some people in that are in the
Oh.
waiting room?
So sorry.
I just realized that I didn't have access to that.
So sorry.
No, that's okay.
Admit all.
There we go. All right.
Great.
Thanks.
Sorry about that. Okay.
That's okay.
So they will schedule reviews and do visits via telephone, send confirming letters, letting them know who we are, why we are coming out, and they do on-site reviews. They document on a beneficiary interview form any issues or concerns brought up by the beneficiary, including concerns based on answers to questions on the form. If the interview is in the beneficiary's home, they will ask, obviously, to tour the home, and Disability Rights Florida will note any observations in the remark sections of the beneficiary interview form. And they do periodic on-site reviews. Again, same thing, we will go out. They can also do, Social Security will select review cases for rep praise. They will get a list of folks. And then as the P&A, we can ask them to do reviews on behalf of concerns or things that we may have discovered in our investigative process. They also do reviews at state mental institutions, and they will do quick response checks, educational visits, and that's all kind of everything for our rep payee team. Our next team is our community and healthcare services team. This team provides legal representation and technical assistance for fair hearings in connection with Medicaid waiver eligibility, the denial, reduction, or termination of Medicaid waiver services, and long-term care services. So CHS ensures that individuals receive home and community-based services to prevent or delay placement in more restrictive settings. They monitor group homes for health and safety issues and concerns that impact the individuals with who receive community-based care. They also monitor rule challenges to the Florida Administrative Code and for rule changes that are under development through ACA. And through individual and systemic advocacy and through the judicial process, CHS seeks to advance the rights of individuals with disabilities and for improvements in the following: Medicaid expansion, home and community-based services, changes to administrative rules, Medicaid waiver recipients, and those, and to ensure folks have their due process rights. They also handle a topic very near and dear to my heart: supported decision-making. And supported decision-making is an alternative to guardianship, which allows persons with disabilities to better understand, consider, and communicate decisions that impact their lives. So supported decision-making is really a process that we all use every day in our everyday life. If someone we want services from used a specialized term for their business or procedure, it would be very hard to understand, almost like a foreign language. So we ask for help from family, friends, advocates, and any other trusted individual to help us understand. And once we get the information, what's going on, what we need to do, we can make a good decision. And this is really in a nutshell what supported decision making can be. I will tell you at my age, if I'm going to make any kind of big decisions in my life, I still would rely on close friends and family. I'm going to purchase a car. I will talk to folks about, what do you think about this? What are their safety ratings and things like that. So I want to make a good informed choice. So supported decision making can be formalized in agreement where you detail all the areas of your life and what you would like support in making your decisions. In this agreement, you can say who you want to support you. It is always very important, if you do have a supported decision-making agreement, that these are folks that you trust and can rely on to assist you in coming to a decision that is best for you. For example, you might want to have your uncle for your supporter for deciding where you live. You could state that your uncle will help you make a list of things you want in an apartment, find a realtor, visit apartments with you, help you set up automatic payments for your rent. You could also state that you don't want your uncle to talk to the landlord without you. So again, the thing about supported decision-making, it is about the individual. So no decisions are made on your behalf. You have the power to make the decisions that you need with the support of, trusted and close friends and family.
Hey, Ann, we do
Yes.
have a question.
Sure.
Crystal, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Um, I have a question about Medicaid. Um, if I'm on a different plan, because I'm just want to ask because I might be on a different plan of Medicaid because I have Medicaid and Medicare, but I don't know if it's gonna change or not. Is that possible?
Very good question. I should have preempted my presentation with letting you know I'm not our Medicaid, Medicare expert in the agency, but if you do have questions, you can always call our intake team and they will be able to, if they can't do an information or referral for you, if that is something our agency can help provide you information on, they can provide you a technical assistance call with our one of our issue teams like CHS, who handles the primary of our Medicaid questions.
Okay. If you don't mind, can you send me the number to my
I will,
email so I
Crystal.
can send it to my mom?
I will
Yep.
forward that information to you after the fact.
Thank you, Anne.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, as I was stating, we all have trouble making decisions. You may, this process will assist you in being able to make decisions based on what you want and what you need. And it is a support to you. And again, we highly recommend that you work with folks that you really trust and that will be working on your best interest and on your behalf.
Okay, we do have one other question on supported decision-making. How does it differ from power of attorney or a healthcare surrogate?
Okay, so when you have a power of attorney or a healthcare surrogate, you're in essence giving that individual the right to make decisions on your behalf. with supported decision making, you are the one making the decisions with the support of your team or whoever you've chosen as your folks to help support you in decision making. So you retain all your autonomy and your ability to decide for yourself, whereas in having a power of attorney or a healthcare surrogate, that person stands in place of you to make decisions in the event that you aren't able to make those decisions for you yourself.
And what about, what protections are there for people with disabilities if someone is given supported decision-making and it's taking advantage of the person?
Well, and that's the thing. So if you have a supported decision-making plan, that person doesn't make the decisions for you. So there is not that risk of somebody making decisions that benefit themselves over you. You are the person in the driver's seat. You can control what your choices are. The supported decision-making folks are just people who provide you information to help guide you, but they do not have the authority to make decisions on your behalf.
Okay. I hope that answered the question from Sarah. We do have two others since we're kind of on SDM right now. One is if clients have a guardian advocacy or guardian advocate, how do they change that to the SDM model? Is that possible?
Yes, they can follow a court procedure in trying to get that guardianship removed. They would file a suggestion of capacity, and it's a legal process to have the guardian advocate or have a guardianship removed for the individual.
And what are the best supported decision-making resources? Is that something on your website, or you could forward me the information to share?
Yes, we do have a lot of resources on our website about supported decision making. We
Okay.
have a disability topics page on our website where supported decision making is one of the areas that we have for as a resource for folks.
Great. Kaya, did you have a question on SDM?
I don't. I've had an issue with myself with my health insurance. Like I have the Medicare Advantage. I also have full Medicaid, and I was wondering if Crystal was asking, you can go on dual complete if you have Medicare and full Medicaid. I was just wanting to clarify that. It
Right.
wasn't about that. So I wasn't sure if that's what Crystal was asking for information about. I just went through that myself the past first
Okay,
week of
I will
January.
share that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in our, to kind of wrap up our supported decision making section, supporters can help you make informed decisions in the following ways. They can help collect and communicate with you about information that's related, help you understand and explore your options, explain the risks and benefits of options, give guidance and recommendations, and assist you in communicating and carrying out the decision. Ultimately, the most important part of this is the final decision is left up to you. A supported decision-making agreement can be written out and signed by all the parties, but a signed writing is not required. But again, the key is that you are the individual in the driver's seat who is able to determine what decisions you want made on your behalf. And as in any case, you are always free to follow the advice of others or to not. But again, the supported decision-making puts you in the driver's seat and not someone else on your behalf telling you what you need to do. So our next team is the investigations team, and they handle the lion's share of our abuse, neglect, and rights. So they address instances of abuse, neglect, and rights violations of individuals with disabilities that reside in facilities in the community by investigating individual requests. They investigate reports received regarding deaths or other instances of abuse or neglect. They monitor facilities for rights compliance, and they train and educate individuals with disabilities, supporters, and providers. The facilities that they investigate and monitor are Baker Act facilities, receiving facilities, crisis stabilization units, hospitals, state mental health treatment facilities, pediatric residential treatment facilities, assisted living facilities, limited mental health treatment facilities, nursing homes, jails, prisons, juvenile justice facilities, and forensic commitment facilities, and intermediate care facilities. Assistance in the community, they will investigate issues in schools. They do cross-team work with our advocacy, education, and outreach team, group homes, which are community and healthcare services team, and unlicensed ALFs or other congregate living arrangements purporting to serve individuals with disabilities. Some of the reports, the sources of reports we accept, obviously, reports of abuse, neglect, and rights violations from individuals with disabilities, their family and friends, staff at facilities, news articles, public reports or memorandum, and reports of serious incidents of restraint and seclusion. Our investigations team also has their own intake line, which is a dedicated line for our staff to take live calls during our business hours from individuals who reside in facilities where phone access is restricted or limited. And they also handle what we call our institutional intake mail. So the staff receive and respond to mail received from individuals with disabilities that write to us, typically from jails and prisons. We also get community intakes from our first team, internal referrals from other DRF staff members, and external reports. Sometimes you'll see stuff in the newspapers. Our National Disability Rights Network can provide us information, serious incident reports, or from SAMHSA.
And can
So-
you let people in? There's a couple people I think that are trying to get in.
Got one.
There you go. Thanks.
All right, so when you go through the intake, they will ask for personal demographic and disability information. They'll want to know, obviously, your current location, what the facility name is. If in a facility, the patient ID or patient code or any kind of identifier, like if you're in a jail or in the Department of Corrections. Number, attorney name or location of their office, whether you're dealing with a public defender, contact information, location after discharge, and also it could be a trusted contact, such as a family member. And if calling to report abuse and neglect, if they've called APS or filed a grievance.
And we do have a couple questions in the chat. One is it a reportable abuse incident when a guardian advocate keeps clients' funds from the clients?
That could be very problematic. And so it would be something that, yes, that should
Okay.
be investigated.
What about, is it reportable as a rights violation when a guardian advocate sets up for a client to move despite the client repeatedly saying they do not want to relocate?
Wow. That's complicated. Because of it depends. I hate to give you the standard lawyer. It depends on what the rights that were afforded for the guardian advocate to possibly have over the individual. So I can't call whether that would be an exploitation issue or not. And I would have to say it would all depend on the fact. But again, I'm going to do another little shameless plug. That's why we are very much interested in promoting supported decision making, because it would put that individual in the driver's seat to make those very important life decision choices of where you want to live, who you want to associate with, if you want to work, and things like that.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So our investigations team reviews reports to determine if the allegation falls within the DRF's goals, priorities, and objectives, giving special consideration to, is the report related to a disability? Does the report fall under one of our grants, and is the person in the facility? So they inform an individual with a disability about the report if the source of report came from another source, clarify purpose and goal of investigation with the individual with a disability. We do obtain consent from the individual with the disability. That is one thing that sometimes frustrates callers. They will call on someone's behalf. While we can look into that issue, ultimately, we need the consent of the individual with the disability to work on their behalf. So they will obtain consent from the guardian or the guardian advocate when applicable. We obtain records and do a complete record review, interview the witness, provide appropriate agreed upon advocacy based on findings such as negotiated agreeable solution, train and educate staff or clients, file complaints or reports to other entities, and also legal representation. In our agency, we have a group of very talented and dedicated advocates who are not attorneys, and we also have a group of folks that are attorneys in our agency. So our cases could be assigned to either, depending on the issue, and not always does it, because you're assigned a attorney, does that mean we're doing a legal matter. We use our folks interchangeably. So there may be times where you are assigned an attorney, but it's not for a litigation matter, but it is for an investigative matter and for advocacy. They also do monitoring. So they will provide notice again to the facility that we're going to conduct a monitoring. The monitoring efforts are determined based on reports regarding a particular facility or a need to provide training or education to staff and residents. The purpose of monitoring is to assess for abuse, neglect, and rights violations. The monitoring process includes gathering information about the facility, using our access authority or publicly available sources, informing guardians or parents of monitoring visit, on-site visit, interviews with facility administrators, staff, and residents, and providing training and education to administrators, staff, and residents. So what is abuse and how to identify abuse against a person with a disability? There was an act or a failure to act. The act or failure to act was knowing, reckless, or intentional. Injury and harm or death occurred as a result of the act or failure to act, and the act or failure to act was committed by someone with a duty to provide care or treatment. So, for example, striking with the hands, feet, or an object, rape or inappropriate sexual touching, use of excessive force when placing someone in restraints, use of restraints, whether physical or chemical, not in compliance with the law, and potential financial exploitation. And for neglect, how to identify neglect against a person with a disability. There was an act or an omission. The act or omission was negligent. The act or omission caused or created risk of injury or death. And the act or omission was done by someone with a duty to provide care or treatment. Examples include the failure to establish and carry out an appropriate individual program or treatment plan, including discharge planning. Failure to provide adequate nutrition, clothing, or health care, failure to provide a safe environment, including adequate staffing levels, to take appropriate steps to prevent self-abuse, harm, or assault by a peer. What rights are protected? Rights may be determined or afforded by the Constitution, state or federal law, state law, rules and regulations, administrative codes, accrediting agencies, court orders, and opinions. Clients' rights may vary or be qualified depending on where they live, who or what agency is responsible for providing care and treatment, and their commitment status, whether it was voluntary versus involuntary, civil versus forensic. So the investigation team focuses on ensuring protection on the following rights: the provision of a reasonable accommodation under the ADA, freedom from disability-related discrimination, appropriate quality treatment, individualized, not withheld or delayed, patient included when treatment plan developed, least restrictive, discharge planning, express or informed consent, communication with friends, family, others outside of the facility and via phone or mail, unrestricted access to reporting abuse and neglect to Disability Rights Florida and APS, which includes the posting of phone numbers and addresses. The investigation team focuses on ensuring the protection of the following rights: possession or protecting and safeguarding of personal property, voting in public elections, grievance and other complaint resolutions by the facility, a writ of habeas corpus petitions, right to ask court to review an involuntary commitment to secure possible release, including help drafting and filing the petition, the right and freedom to move freely in a facility, outside access, common areas, freedom from seclusion and restraint, and confidentiality of protected health information under HIPAA. So the last team that I'm gonna give you an overview is our Advocacy, Education, and Outreach team, also known as AEO. And they cover our cases in the community that deal with violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That could be an architectural barrier. That could be a denial of your service animal in the community, in the travel, in your dormitories, or even your workplace. Effective communication in the community and workplace, reasonable accommodations in the community and workplace, and transportation, public, paratransit, and medical. They also are the team that houses our client assistance program, and those assist those who are seeking services under the Rehabilitation Act. The CAP empowers people with disabilities to fully understand and exercise their rights to services. CAP strives to assure that people with disabilities are allowed to make informed choices throughout the vocational rehabilitation and independent living process, and that are treated with dignity and respect. Advocacy is representation when navigating the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, the Division of Blind Services, the Center of Independent Living, and Independent Living Rehabilitation Programs. They also handle employment under Title I of the ADA for folks who are looking for reasonable accommodations, and representation at administrative reviews, mediations, and fair hearings. This team also handles all of our education, K through 12. So one of the requirements is it needs to be a public school. We do not handle private school cases. So we get cases regarding eligibility, free appropriate public education for all students with disabilities, least restrictive environment, also known as LRE, reasonable accommodations and modifications, and related services. We get a lot of calls regarding discipline cases, expulsion, suspension, restraint, seclusion, arrest, and Baker Act, transition cases, whether it's from preschool to kindergarten, elementary to middle, middle to high school to post-secondary, education, training, and employment. As I said, we don't handle issues in private schools. We don't handle grade disputes, and paraprofessionals for educational services, with the exception of health, behavior, and safety. We also don't handle a case if the parents already filed for a hearing, because we need the ability to go in and investigate and potentially try to resolve the matter at the level, at the school level first, or if you are already working with another advocate or attorney, we do not get involved, because that is a duplication of our services. And we are limited, obviously, we are a statewide agency, so we want to ensure that we're available to provide assistance to folks that don't have other means of assistance. We also handle post-secondary education and training. This could be college, university, vocational training. We handle reasonable accommodations in the classroom and testing, access, dorms, service animals in the dorms, and any discriminatory policies and procedures that affect an individual because of their disability. We handle benefits. We provide technical assistance to Social Security beneficiaries about work incentives and ticket to work. We assist beneficiaries in disputes before Social Security Administration involving work-related program decisions and benefits, including overpayments that are clearly a barrier to securing, maintaining, or regaining employment. We investigate complaints of improper or inadequate services provided to Social Security beneficiaries in an effort to secure, maintain, or regain employment. Expedited reinstatement of benefits for certain previous SSA beneficiaries when the medical condition no longer permits that performance of substantial work. Work with transition age youth receiving SSI benefits to identify and remove barriers to employment and independence, provide technical assistance to Social Security beneficiaries about work incentives, ticket to work, assist Social Security beneficiaries in disputes before at SSA involving work-related program decisions and benefits, including overpayments, that are, again, a barrier to securing, maintaining, or regaining employment. We assist individuals with disabilities in disputes involving Medicaid eligibility, including protected Medicaid, HCBS waivers, Medicare savings programs, and a buy-in that are clearly a barrier to community access. They also do all of our fair housing cases. So they address discrimination against people with disabilities by landlords, housing associations, housing authorities, or other areas that include reasonable accommodations and modification requests, discriminatory harassment, wrongful evictions for disability-related issues, securing and porting Section 8 vouchers for disability-related reasons, suits, counterclaims, or other legal actions to protect against disability and discrimination in housing. We provide technical assistance and representation on certain systemic housing issues, supported housing for individuals with mental illness or intellectual or developmental disabilities, and housing covered by the Fair Housing Act. Our advocacy services, we provide advocacy after completion of a thorough record review and investigation, technical assistance, representation at informal conflict resolution and mediation, representation at administrative reviews, at administrative hearings, state and federal court, and appeals. For our education and outreach, we provide training and presentations to our consumers, family caregivers, agencies, and providers. We provide information and technical assistance, information for publications, information to state agencies and legislators, participate and provide input to work groups, committees, and task force, and participate in stakeholder meetings and conferences and webinars. And these are a few of our website, our Facebook, our Twitter, excuse me, I guess now I should say X, but YouTube and our Instagram pages for Disability Rights Florida. And this is our contact information. That 800 number will get you to our intake, and also our website. We have online intake process for those of you who might need assistance but are unable to reach us during our business hours, or just prefer to do online and be able to answer the questions online. We have that for our website. So that is kind of us in a nutshell. And I want to thank you for allowing me to come in and provide this information.
Great, thank you. We do have two questions. One is a question about the support for overpayment hearing. Kevin has a question on that.
And what, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the question is.
And Siegel, computer audio unmuted.
I do have a question on that because
You're going to court in April.
yes, or in April.
Would they be able to help us?
What type of hearing is it?
Payment.
Overpayment.
An overpayment hearing. I can't I can't guarantee. We would have to look at it because it's at the hearing level already. But we have an amazing advocate who handles our overpayment cases. So one of the things they would do is investigate whether obviously whether there are mitigating factors, whether it is truly an overpayment, and you know, there's a lot of stuff. So if you want to reach out to our intake team, we can investigate and see if that is something we can assist you with.
Excellent.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so another question, kind of a long one, but, and I don't know if Sarah, you want to ask it directly instead of me reading it, or I can definitely read the question.
I don't mind asking. So one of the questions I had about supported decision making, and I just want, you know, for purposes of the question, I'm really supportive of people being independent out in the community and making their own decisions. But you know, if I have parents asking me, caregivers asking me, okay, what if some person decides, you know, convinces my loved one that they need a supported decision maker that's not the caregiver, and you know, basically the supported decision maker convinces the person with a disability to make a decision that isn't in their best interests. Is there any liability, consequence for a supported decision maker that convinces the principal to make a decision that benefits the supported decision maker, not the principal? Like, for example, what if somebody befriended a person and said, hey, we need to go sign this lease, and they signed the supported decision making agreement, and the person entered into a lease that wasn't necessarily financially good for them? Is there any kind of consequence when a supported decision maker engages in abuse or neglect of a person that might be vulnerable?
Well, and it depends whether it rises to the level of criminal exploitation. So again, the key to supported decision-making is having trusted folks in your circle of support that are not going to convince you to sign up for something outside the means, or your means. So it's really important. And the thing is, again, with the supported decision-making, is that person can't make the decision for you. It is up to you to make that decision for yourself. So they can't sign the lease on your behalf. They can't commit your resources on your behalf. So again, very important for you to have trusted individuals. But again, when you're looking at any kind of exploitation or anything, it would depend on what level of it is. Sometimes I will tell you, I'm a parent of 2 adult children, and oftentimes it's scary for me. They're out in the real world making decisions, and who's influencing those decisions. So the best thing to do is, as you know, as you are raising your children, is to ensure that they understand self-determination, what their rights are, and to help support them in making good decisions for themselves.
Is there any determination of the level of capacity? Like, diminished capacity is, you know, it's a spectrum. It's not like a you have it or you don't. So is when the supported decision-making agreement is being written and signed, is there an obligation for anyone in that process to determine whether the person seeking a supported decision maker has the understanding of what they're signing?
Well, that is the whole role of supported decision, the whole goal rather of supported decision making is for folks who need support in making making, and they have the ability to make those decisions. There is not as in guardianship, where you have to have a determination of incapacity, there is no determination of capacity. You are deemed competent until a court of competent jurisdiction says otherwise.
Right, but I mean, in reality, I mean, yes, but if you've got somebody who might be taken advantage of or might be convinced to enter into this agreement, there doesn't seem to be, from what you're saying, there's no there's no consequence unless it rises to a very high level of
Well,
criminality. If,
I understand your concern, but again, the supported decision-making agreement can be revoked at any time by the individual. It's the same thing with folks under guardianship. I mean, we hear horror stories every day about folks who've been exploited, had their homes taken away, had their finances, their cars cut off from their family. So there is a risk of exploitation out there that I won't deny, but it's in all areas. There's no added protection because you're under a guardianship. We've seen many failed guardianships where even though there was court oversight, these things still happen. So again, with supported decision-making, it is choosing folks who have your best interest in heart and folks you're very familiar with and folks you can trust.
That's the topic.
It is, it
That's
is.
the tough part.
I agree with you because it makes. And
I will be honest with you. As I said, I am a parent of two adult children, and my ability to stop worrying about them did not end at 18. I continue to worry about my children every day. What I did my best as a parent to do is to raise my kids to be as independent as they can be. And really, that is all we can ask of anybody, is to be as independent as they can be. But I think there's a false sense of security that being under a guardianship is going to protect you from exploitation. And it's just not been my experience in the years that I've been advocating for folks with disabilities. We've seen quite the contrary. We've seen a lot of people who may have been well-intended, who unfortunately fell short. And then we've seen where the system has unfortunately allowed folks to financially exploit individuals. So it is within anything, you always have to be careful who you trust.
Do we have any other questions for Ann? Because we are at time. I know she went over a lot of information. So we will share the presentation with everybody, and then we will post the recording later in the week on our YouTube channel. So Ann, we thank you very much. Oh, I see a hand. Hang on. Oh, Crystal, you had a question.
Hi, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Did you state, or during the presentation, was it stated that you're able to assist with APD or Medicaid waiver denials?
Yes. Again, like everything, you go through an intake process and they gather the information, and then it goes on to the director of that team and they do an assessment of whether that is an issue we can help with. But we do represent some folks with APD denials.
Okay, so I would just call the number that you've already
Yes.
provided. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is Kevin's mom. May I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Yes, you had mentioned about helping on the job site if there was adaptive equipment or something necessary. Is that a truism?
So if you have an individual who needs reasonable accommodations and that may need assistive technology, yes, we have advocate who will advocate for folks to get reasonable accommodations on the job site.
And would that be outside of just technology, if there's a certain element that needs to be developed for him to carry something, would that be something your service would provide?
We would advocate for the appropriate modifications or accommodations. And if that means that this individual needs a device or some sort of assistance in that manner, yes, we do advocate for that.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because I had seen that there was a reference to Voc Rehab. So you also work with Voc Rehab?
We have the client assistance program. They provide advocacy and assistance in navigating the vocational rehabilitation process. So we have folks that sometimes want to become eligible or may have difficulty navigating or may be in a dispute that they want a certain service on their individualized plan for employment, and VR is denying that, and we assign advocates for that.
Excellent to know, because yeah, we are stumbling on obstacles with VR. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you all, and please feel free to check out our website. I know I kind of ran through everything very quickly for you all, but there is a wealth of information on our website also.
Right, thank you so much. And we look forward to having everyone join us in February. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year.